A very good evening to you out there. I trust you are kicking and winning in life. Once again, this is Generational Leaders Talk Show. My name is King George. I'm your host. As I always bring this show to you, for you to be inspired and challenged and to go out there so you can make a difference. And you know, this show will bring on the show the best experts for the topic. Today is going to be a very wonderful day as well. And today, trust me, even as you watch, you take some cue and it will help you to advance in life. Last 2 weeks and last week, we had a fruitful discussion. We spoke about emotional intelligence and we alluded to so many principles. And today, we are not shipwrecking, but we are veering towards it by talking about temperament, in a sense that we're going to talk about why you behave the way you do. Why you behave the way you do. So even as you sit down to watch the show, I want you to take a pen and a pencil, or a pen and a paper, or a pencil, or a general. Write as much as you can so that you will learn from what you've written, because my experts are going to give you nothing but the best. And so my motivational message for today, before we set the ball rolling, or before we go into the second segment, is this. It is always important to know who you really are and how and why you act the way you do. Until you come to that knowledge of knowing whom you really are and act the way you do, the possibility that you will offend people is very huge. So until you know why you behave the way you do and how you can use that in a proactive manner to collaborate with people around you and build a very good relationship, you will always hurt people. So today we just want to know how and the way we will live with people harmony, and the way we do what we do, we get to know all these things. I'm very privileged to have great, outstanding friends who are going to help us to digest and discuss this topic for today. So on my stream, right, happened to be Mr. Ezekiel Chibeze. Mr. Ezekiel Chibeze is not a stranger on this show, but for some time now, he's been away because of his busy schedule. He's a executive coordinator of Strategic Youth Network for Development. Is he? I'll be. It's been a while. Okay, good. We also have another old friend of mine, great, outstanding guy. It's been a while, but God has his own way for bringing people together again. I happen to be on the same board with him at Data Bank Foundation, and it's in the person of Mr. Prince Banfu. Prince.
Thank you.
Mr. Prince Banfu happens to be a pastor and also a leadership coach. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
Before we start, let's talk about what happened in the course of the week. I mean, what is trending? What is your take as leaders who are leading the next generation? Aside from you, Mr. Prince.
Thank you, George. I want to say thank you for having me today.
Thank you too.
And also a very good evening to your those on the other side who make this show a show. Mm-hmm. The issue of leadership in Ghana really, as you would know, for me, I most of the time take it from more like personal leadership, and not necessarily the sort of group leadership where one person has to be on the top, making sure that things run. And the reason being that it looks like we need to sort of correct something from all the ranks, because as the years have gone by, we have continued complaining for so long. I mean, I remember when I was young, old people would talk about two things. Either they are talking about the US lottery, winning the lottery and leaving the country, or two, that there are people called politicians who are bad. That language has not changed
at all.
And so it's sort of the worry for me, or the really need that comes to me, is the need to really pursue more personal leadership than the group leadership, because once we begin to correct things, individually, hopefully that should sort of ripple through the ranks to now produce what we really want to see. The question is that if we don't have all the leaders who are there now, we are complaining of. If we are pushing them and then putting everybody or everyone who is now upcoming, we are putting ourselves there as a next generation. Are we really up to the task? Will we prove to them that this is the opportunity we've been waiting for? And for me, what really will straighten that is personal leadership.
Personal leadership. We ought to take personal responsibility
Yes.
to ourselves these things. Is it? Take on what Pastor Prince just said.
Yeah, yeah, so thank you once again Jeff, for this opportunity. And let me say a very good evening to our cherished viewers out there. Without them, I don't think that we can come this far. So at least we have to also appreciate them for spending their time, with us today. Well, I think the past week has been quite dramatic.
Very, very dramatic. Very, very dramatic.
It's like we don't get over one issue, then something else comes up.
As if it's been planned and that is
Yeah,
unfolding.
So I'm even wondering how the president is feeling now. Because. But I think that what is more important is that I think there was a time that we had this conversation that people seem to be losing confidence in the system. Or
Yeah, I think we discussed that here.
Yeah, we
on the
discussed. I
set.
remember we discussed that here. So if you look at what has happened, now there's not even trust. In terms of how to deal with the issues, amicably. I recall. I hear the president, for example, has set up a ministerial committee over the Jura issue.
Committee.
Yeah, and I've seen people reacting.
The public inquiries. They say they don't believe in those things.
Yes, I mean, it's not because it's not the first time.
Yes.
I've even heard people say that Short came out with some recommendation.
It has not been done.
It's not been done.
Yeah.
So what are you telling us, with this issue, and even what So when people start losing confidence, in the system, then it becomes quite difficult for
Gives
them
another
to,
impression.
It creates an impression, about some leadership failure.
Yeah.
And I think the earlier we arrest that, the better for all of us. Because, I mean, frankly, we say Ghana is a very peaceful country. Ghana is, we are calm people. We are not aggressive like other people. But, I've been told several times that Liberia used to be like Ghana. Before the war, if anybody told you that Liberia will go into war, you will never believe it. But something triggers, something. I mean, and if you observe very critically, people are actually increasingly becoming angry. If you look at social media, even the field economy. People, even in spite of the government or the IGP saying that they can't go on demonstration, they're using various means to still express their anger. So people are getting angrier, day in and day out. So what do we do, for them to have confidence in the system? So I think that it's a wake-up call for government institutions to, those who are found to be guilty. I mean, let's punish them. I've seen a letter from the Ghana Armed Forces saying they're going to conduct some internal investigation to, punish those soldiers. What happened in Wa? But I think that we need to see some action. I mean, if you ask me, the Criminal Act is very clear as to what to be done to the person. If somebody steals the country's money, there are rules and regulations. The person must be taken to court, and if the person is not able to justify.
Yeah, so why don't we also follow that pattern?
Follow it is there.
Yeah, so why should the military take those things for themselves to do it?
Oh, but I think this is a military issue, so they have to.
Because it's possible that they can shell their own people.
That's what I'm saying. I think we have seen the video.
Yes.
What they've done. So again, it's up to them to show us that they are, what do you call it? They are going to do the right thing. If they also share their people, then in future, I mean, and I don't think the military want to, will sit back and make sure that their good name goes down the drain.
When they say something,
Frankly, you see, so it's like the question of why is so clear to all of us what needs to be done. I mean, it's amazing that today, even on these incidents, you can ask somebody in senior high school and they will tell you what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And so it's not that these people don't really know about it. I feel like it is much more deeper. You see, when your definition of leadership is wrong at a certain deep, at the core, whatever is built on will definitely be compromised at some point. For people to be so objective as we want them to do about these consequences is something that unfortunately I am not a believer in is going to happen now. Because of how we were taught leadership, people go into politics with different ideologies and different, and motivations. You have no idea. So to you, the person should be doing certain things, but you see, the trigger, the main motivation for the person entering the office is something different. It's something else. And so when issues like this come up, what is so real to everyone, what we can just point and say, but this is what needs to be done, will not be done.
Will be done.
Why? Because in the first step, the person went there with a certain motive. If the person is part of us, let's cover up. If the person is not part of us, even if the person is part of us and speaks against us, he's not part of us.
Not part of us.
And so it's quite clear that something deep-rooted is wrong, which is why programs like what you are doing, fantastic, so that people can now begin to get the reorientation about what it means to really lead from a place of, a place of promise, a place where we really want to do the right thing.
And this is to raise new generation leaders, so that, because it looks as if this generation has failed us and we cannot look up to them, and therefore I don't know the kind of example we are setting to the other generation. So we need to find a new breed of generation to, developed. Anyway, if you just join us, this is the Generational Leaders Talk Show, and we're just touching on what has happened in the course of the week, and my guest has alluded to certain things that has happened, what needs to be done and what not to be done. Let's look at what temperament is. Let's look at how
because I'm also more in the space of ministry, I like to usually look at temperament from the point of
the biblical.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the best.
It's looking to me that when something happened in the garden, that gave birth to different parts of us that are not fully complete. It wasn't like, you see, already the human being was created with a part missing. I mean, that is why Adam had not sinned yet, and yet there was still a part of him that was missing, and Eve was a perfect match. And so originally, from the way we were created as dependent, beings, except that we needed to find other parts of us in other people. But when the fall happened, now your missing parts become quite detrimental to you, in the sense that now they are certain, in the sense that really now you become your own friend, and you become one of your enemies.
Wow.
And so for me, I like to look at temperament from the point of where now, personalities that make us who we are, that bring the flow of what we have been called to do, and the space where we really have to operate. And yet also the real reason why we are one of our enemies. Really. For me, that is how I really define temperament.
Is it your point of view on temperament?
Yeah, I think temperament basically, there are, if you like, certain traits that determine how people
tendencies sort of
respond, to issues in the world. So there are traits that you have or that makes you will determine how you respond
to other things
or circumstances in life. So that's how I put it.
So
and so at least the temperaments, like my brother said, are traits that now we begin to really study the mix. So it's like doing salad with the same mixed, ingredients.
Cucumber,
exactly.
All those things.
And yet, when you have to, if you even increase the carrots just by 2 or 3, it changes the blend. And so for each one of us, it's like we are a different sort of meal, but almost the same thing that we are all targeted at cooking. So that, for example, when we say somebody is sanguine, I'm sure some people may have read this in books, but what we are talking about here is so important.
Yes.
It's extremely important because it is an unlocking of the ignorance of yourself. You need to know who you are. And for a sanguine, I'm sure, you see, there are some people in life, and if you are looking at, or when you are engaging with people, because we are all in a new environment. Today, I was in Kumasi in another program saying that if you're 18 years, this is the first time you're 18 in your life. And if you're 60, it's your first time. So for all of us, it's our first time.
Yeah.
And so when you are trying to really master an environment that is new to you, you have to find a way to understand how things work. And on top of the things are other human beings who are around you, trying to really sort of stand in the back to study how they behave and how they really engage. And so that you can better work with them. We were talking about the issues that have happened in the week. You see, one word can be the reason, one wrong word can be the reason why tomorrow somebody picks a gun and things happen. So the internal, triggers and how human beings work is a really important space to really learn, and so that we can really do what we have to do the best way we can. But the question of sanguine, I'll leave it to Ezekiel to perhaps open up there.
We have a friend, Danny, may so rest in peace, in church, in doing conversation, he has this funny statement he normally makes, that what the pussycat will see and blink, the dog will see and bark. So they are responding or reacting differently, to the same issue. So back to the issue of sanguine. So like Pastor said, sometimes it's one thing to read textbooks definition and all that, but at least it gives us a fair idea as to the kind of people that we are talking about. And one of the challenges I have with the traits, it has to do with that they have several adjectives describing one person. So, but of course, generally a sanguine, somebody who is outspoken, who is very active, who is sociable. He's always out there. And even when he joins a new group, he easily gets his way through. So that's the kind of person we're talking about. Somebody who is outgoing and is able to express himself, confidently and all that. So basically,
but
that is what I say.
Expressing yourself sometimes, don't you think sometimes it's likely to step on somebody's toe?
So there are negatives and positives, but that's the person.
Okay.
And there are people, you see, and that's what he's saying. That sometimes you must also know yourself very well. If you are spoken, and you can't be perfect.
Of course.
Assuming you step on somebody's toe and somebody prompts you, you apologize, but it will not stop you from being outspoken. That's the thing.
About what is happening, and sometimes you need to be encouraged, or you need to feed them a lot of things for them to know that they are appreciated, because the way they are, because they are so outgoing, they have to be seen.
That's true.
And so when you have a sanguine in your environment,
is it tension?
That's the traits. So it's like
very loud.
So that when you are a leader and you have a sanguine in your space, you have to find a way to give the person exposure, because that's the person. He's not the kind of person behind the scenes. No, he has to be seen, and being seen is a part of him. And so you want to sort of give him that opportunity to be engaging, and most of the time you can find the best out of such a person.
Let's look at this. Most of you are married. Let's take it further into marriage. How is the attitude of a sanguine marriage?
Okay.
Because sometimes you might think the person happens to be a loud person, but he may offend his partner. One of the things I realize is that for sanguines, because they are very alive and yet not that organized, almost always doing more than one project. Sanguines are almost always doing more than one project. They are the kind of people who are in the office, if they are volunteers to do something, they are part. Church, if they are doing something, they are also part. Everywhere you find Jack of all trades.
Exactly. And so sometimes they miss some things along the way. And really in marriage, depending on the kind of personality you are married to, this can be some of the things to struggle over.
So if you happen to marry a sanguine person, other part, both of you happen to be a sanguine, how is it going to be like?
Yeah. Actually, some of the research points to the fact that it's like when you are a sanguine, most likely you settle down with a melancholic. And actually, when you study the pattern, I am beginning to actually accept that.
No, I mean,
Are you experiencing it?
Yeah,
I mean,
well, there's been a saying that even when it comes to marriage, you need somebody, a helper, comparable to you. So somebody to complement.
Yes.
You know, so you can have two, sanguines. I'm not sure how the house will be like.
yeah.
But most of the time, it's the ladies that talk that much than the
So
men.
I mean, sometimes too naturally, women talk more,
Yes,
express
yes.
themselves more than men. So
The men want to think, they want to have their own, but the women will follow you, talk,
they have to
complain,
express whatever they think.
whatever.
Or
They are too
Yeah.
emotional to react.
You see,
call them?
the thing is
Yeah.
that it's like when a man is a sanguine, most of the time, because he's not too organized, when he sees an organized person, he feels that that's my missing piece.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
when the organized person also sees a man who is so alive,
yeah,
depending on the kind of temperament that person may have, the person may also see that sanguine as well. This may be
yeah,
my piece.
yeah,
So that it's like the missing parts of each
yeah.
person seem to align. And that is what the research was pointing to. And quite frankly, sitting down and studying some, people, it seemed to be it. It's like
Yeah.
like poles repel, but
unlike
unlike poles quickly attract. And so the sanguine wants to find a woman who is extremely organized.
Yeah.
And yet as soon as they settle down, the woman realizes that, but why is your shoe here? Why is this here? But why did you leave this here? Forgetting that this person is actually a sanguine. Yeah, he may be alive,
Yeah.
so much alive. People may be all over him because
Yeah.
of the energy he brings to the table.
Yeah.
And yet, when you are close to the person, you realize that, no, there are still so many things this person is unable to do.
Yeah. That's
And in marriage, people need to really understand it from that point of view to really
Yeah.
appreciate the differences.
Absolutely.
Let's look at it in the habit of sanguine in the home. In the home, their attitude towards home, the way they do things in the house, and the way they go about their daily routine in the house. Let's look at it. Is it?
No, I think that is Prince has actually shed more light on it. So just like being in marriage or being home, a very lively person, trying to get involved in whatever is happening at home. But you also mentioned that the person, the other, if you like, the downside is about issue of organizing or not, not being organized. So I mean, you need somebody at home who will be cheerful. If there are children, you need somebody who made them happy and all that. So. So you can have it all,
They
but
need so people come to them. The home is open to everybody.
so that's what, so if it's home, then you need a partner who can make up for the shortfalls. There's to be a movie that's Sarah, where's my socks?
Yeah.
So
It's an ad. That was an advert.
So you can have a hard-working husband who is doing very well in corporate world, but when it comes home, he's from the gate, he's throwing his bag here, and then the morning is asking for his tie and all that. So yes, I mean, at home they are lively, they are that, but they also have, they are, no human being is perfect. So they have their shortfalls, which is the organizing bit. That's where the partner comes in to balance.
Is it the sanguine also expects other people to be as positive as they
Yes, it
are?
is.
So to an extent, sometimes if you are with a sanguine, and especially you are on the part of the other temperaments where you are very emotional. You may find the sanguine more like a robot than a human being because, always alive even when things are supposed to be
Calm.
Yeah. I mean, when you go for a funeral and you see everybody crying, and yet one person moving about as if nothing is happening, you can be sure that's a sanguine.
Wow, making this happen.
Yes.
Behind the scenes, sort of.
I mean, they come to the funeral and they are forgotten about the dead person. They are thinking about the work that needs to be done. What can I do?
Yeah.
How do we work in the funeral?
Exactly.
Wow.
And so sometimes, especially in the home environment, when people expect some emotions to be expressed, on the part of the sanguine, it's a little bit not straightforward. They have their downtimes, but they are the kind of people, everybody will cry, but they may be the last to cry.
Talking about having a downtime, let's look at their weaknesses. What are some of the weaknesses they possess that you could see, you can point that this is their weaknesses?
You see, that's why at least you can be sure that for every sanguine, they are doing more than one project. They combine things because they love to help, they love to volunteer, they love to do things. And the excitement of moving from one place to the other, they are the kind of people who wants to travel all around. Doing this here, they'll jump and then they'll be here the next day. And you realize that sometimes you need a bit of stability to really make things work. And for people who sort of jump from one thing to the other, one of the
lack of focus.
Exactly. It's the sanguine may begin a project and not finish it most of the time. And when you push, you realize it's because of another project. And so it's like they need people who can really go the long haul to help them in that direction. And in that space, if they can have somebody who is extremely organized around them, it really sort of straightens a number of things for them.
Is it, you want to add something to it? So we come to the strengths.
There are a number of weaknesses of a sanguine. And sometimes what might be good, acceptable, or positive in one instance can be seen to be a nuisance.
Okay.
In a different instance. Like for example, if at the funeral grounds, you are the only person running around, you are maybe too happy, say, but you're supposed to be in a chilling mood, but so that's
they don't see that.
Yeah, as it will become what are you, so if you're not careful, what might be strength in a different situation or context can end up becoming, a liability, or if you like, something that people will not be happy with. And the other issue is about, like, Prince said, because you get involved in so many things, you are likely to be forgetful. Because sometimes doing one thing requires some detailed consideration, but because you are doing 2 or 4 or 5 things at the same time, you are likely to forget certain details of what you are supposed to do. So, and one mistake or one error can cost you a lot. So that can also be a weakness, of a sanguine.
Viewers, if you just join us, this is the Generational Leaders Talk Show. We are discussing why we do what we do based on the past previous weeks, but the topic that was on the table, talking about emotional intelligence. We just want you to have this so that you know yourself very, very well. So that when we begin to tackle other subjects, you will know how to go about it, because you've come to a point of knowing yourself, knowing how you react towards things. That's how come today we are discussing this topic. I know it's unusual on this particular platform, but hey, we need to do and we need to know so that you will know how to also position yourself in every field of endeavor. So if you just join us, that's exactly what we are discussing. And I'm here with Mr. Ezekiel Chibeze and Pastor Prince. Pastor Prince, somebody just told me that I don't mention your church anyway, so I need to mention what's the name of your church anyway. No, but I just draw my attention to it.
Okay, so Triumphant Church International.
Okay, Triumphant Church International. He happens to be the head pastor of Accra branch, right?
Yeah, there's a High Life branch.
Yeah. Okay, so we have other branches somewhere.
Yes.
That's in Kumasi and
Obuasi.
Yeah. I know you like going to Obuasi a lot.
To preach, but not to do Galamsey.
Okay, so let's look at. Come again.
The nice side, don't worry.
Okay. The sanguine person in the church, the way he behaves, how he does it. Let's look at the way his attitude towards church.
You see, the church environment is a place where it's a place we already talk a lot about hope.
Yeah.
We talk really a lot about faith. And so more on the positive side of things. And so when you have a sanguine in that environment, they really thrive.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
the culture in itself is more like a positive culture, so much so that, I mean, even if something is going wrong, don't say it's going wrong.
Yeah.
And that's a sanguine space.
In the church,
Yeah.
the church environment.
So it's really is something that if somebody is a sanguine in a church, most of the time you realize they really move forward quickly. Yeah, they move forward quickly because already they are connected to a culture that is promoting their kind of ideology of this world.
Yeah.
And also because for them they are already hands-on, and so they already are usually available to make things work.
Wow. Viewers, let me announce the WhatsApp messages and WhatsApp line, because I've seen that messages are come flowing. So let me quickly announce the WhatsApp line. You can join us on 020-768-1986. 020-768-1986. You can also share your thoughts on this subject, or you can also ask questions on this subject. We'll be here to support you on that. Is it your take on the church setting when it comes to the sanguine?
Oh, I mean, once the pastor has spoken, those of us who are church workers who can just, and then, like you said, I mean, it's the right environment for any sanguine to try. You know, let the sick say I'm healed, let the poor say I'm rich. You know, so I mean, it must be positive. You know, so that's where, if you ask me, I mean, it's the best environment for sanguines. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's come to the choleric, the attitude in society, the attitude in the home, the habits with even friends.
Okay, so the choleric is actually a very interesting personality. I think in some years ago, the choleric seemed to be the perfect model for leadership. Before some modifications, you know, to really consider others. But the model for leadership used to be choleric, and that is because of results. And once we are living in a world that sort of cherishes results, every environment where results are the most important thing is a space for the choleric. The kind of person who walks in a room and doesn't mind whether you have eaten or not, but the work needs to be done. The kind of a person who knows, it's like the choleric doesn't need experience. We all may not have experience, but he's the kind of person who can stand up and talk as if he has 20 years experience about what we are coming to do. And really, when you give him the opportunity, he will prove to you that this is it. Because of how strong-willed they are, how they are able to wrap their whole focus around a task to move it, regardless the challenges they face. So those kind of people, they
that was oriented, make sure things happen.
Yes.
Wow. Is it a take on that?
Yeah. So I mean, if you look at the signs or the traits of a choleric, like Pastor said, you will see that you are talking about a leader. You know, so if you read what makes somebody a leader, or the qualities of a leader, or the keys of being a good leader, you know, and you look at the traits of a choleric, you see a number of, similarities in there. They're good at planning, you know, they are very active, you know, results oriented, you know, so I mean efficient, you know, getting things done, you know, so let me say a leader, and so whatever you want to see in a leader, so you get a fair idea about who a choleric is. Gives you a fair idea about who a choleric is.
So they're even bringing it to marital homes, they're able to lead the family, make sure they carry the family along, make sure everything takes place.
Exactly. If they are given the right
atmosphere.
And the right support. I mean, all what we are talking about are people who know these characters by themselves. Because when you get to know it, then it means at least you also know the negatives. And so you are able to. So like...
So in that case, if I get it right, if you are conscious about it, you're able to...
Exactly.
Okay.
Because you know.
Okay.
You know that the tendency that, I'll do this will happen. The tendency that I'll do this will happen. Exactly. The choleric in a classroom setting, I always like to say, when a teacher announces that he wants somebody to lead the class, there are always three kinds of people or three categories that happen in the class. There are those people who are in the middle and pointing names at certain people. They say, no, let's point this one. And there are those people who are very quiet. And they are the people who we are trying to move into the office. So there's the middle ground people who are trying to push those who are quiet to do the leading. And there's a third group. The third group, most of the time, you may not even agree with them because they like talking in class. They are loud. Most of the time, they are not afraid of the teachers. They are the kind of people who stand up and say, hey, who do the work? And for most of the time, they are the cholerics.
Wow. Okay, so most of the time, they are the people who make things happen.
Exactly. They are not afraid.
Okay.
Let everybody say, oh, me, I'm okay. Me, I don't want to do it. They will volunteer themselves. Cholerics in every environment volunteer themselves. Exactly. And just like the sanguine may want to be seen, the choleric wants to be in charge. The sanguine may not necessarily want to be in charge, but the choleric almost always wants to be the bulldozer in front. And so, I mean, a very good example is, of course, Donald Trump. And I mean, even somebody like Steve Jobs, if you've read about Steve Jobs, we are told how he will not take, anything, like he wants excellence at his best. And if it will cost you your sleep, it will. It will cost you your sleep.
Wow, so I'm told by my producer that we need to let our viewers be part of the show by also calling in. Once I have your messages here, but I'll read them anyway. I'll read them. You can be part of the show by calling 0246239070. 0246239070. Call and contribute in the show. Ask any question you want. I'll be here to read them or listen to you. We have a message. He says that he said, "Good evening, King George. This is Samuel. This is Sammy. I'm watching you live and I'm super enlightened. Wow, thank you, Sammy." And somebody he said, "I'm George." In Ipswich, said, "Choleric temperament is the epitome of leaders. Leaders are born. They drag people along to work." That's George Ametepe from Tema. Yeah, Mr. George. I was telling you that he's at Tema. He's a retired man. He really enjoyed the show a lot. I was supposed to have met him this week. So George, I make time to meet you, right? I make time to meet you. This one he said, "I'm David watching from Dansuman. Your guests are superb. They know what they are talking about. In fact, it would be good if you bring them to talk about governance and leadership. You can see their expertise when they began from the onset. You can see they are endowed. So we would like to hear from them." I think there's a call on the line. Hello?
Hello?
Your name and where you are calling from, please.
Yes, my name is Francis.
Francis, go, okay.
I'm calling from Makaipo.
Please, can you lower the set of your set a bit? Hello? Oh, wow. Francis, you can call again, right? And when you call, please can you lower your set, right? You can still call us on 0246239070. 0246239070. Yes. This one says, I'm Kobe, watching again from Cape Coast, London Bridge. What a show! You guys made my day bad last week when you guys didn't come live. You rather played a repeated show. King George, whether rain or shine, we want to see you on set. I salute you, sir, Kobe. This one is he says, "I'm Ike, watching you from Kolebu. I'm really enjoying myself. I'm beginning to know certain kind of traits that I have. Thank you, Ike." This one's okay. Moses says that I'm enjoying what your guests are sharing. They seem to have very deep and knowledge about what they are saying, please can you ask them? Please can you ask them concerning Ghana as leaders? What one word or what one advice would they give to our president if they were to be given the chance to advise him? Hey, Charlie, this is not the topic for the day. This one there is a different set to. We'll tackle that question later, but let's go on. Yes, this one is for Santos. This question is for Santos. This one, he said, I'm No Weapon, watching you live from Newtown. Really enjoying myself. You guys are great. Keep it up. Thank you, No Weapon. This one is Mr. Odro. I'm loving your show. Thank you. Keep the messages coming, and you can call. You can call to also share your opinion or ask questions via the lines on the screen. So you can call 0246239070. This one says, I'm happy. I'm always watching Generation Leaders because that is where I get to learn so many things I did not know in life. Okay, this is Richard from KNUST. King George, as usual, I always send my message. Your show, I'm really enjoying it. And all the guys in the hall are also enjoying it. Really? Oh, all the guys in the hall. This one says, I'm Edu Jemfi. This program is really impacting lives. Pastor Prince's words are really catchy. Yeah, do you know him? Wow. Wow. We single that's okay. So let's move on. You've talked about choleric, right? Let's look at their weaknesses. Their weaknesses, the way they.
It's amazing how those who can really make things happen are also the very people we cannot trust our emotions with. I mean, in the environment of the choleric, you don't want to be emotionally invested unless your emotions align with their way to go. Because they won't mind, they won't really care about your emotions.
Okay, so they think about themselves alone, sort of. Their mind is more locked around the focus, what needs done. So much so that if it has to happen, if somebody has to die for it to happen, they don't mind. So that's serious.
Yeah, that's the kind of people we are talking about. They will move. The kind of people, when you put them in power, everybody who is littering Accra will stop. And they'll be voted out of power.
Wow. And they don't care about that.
No. So, I mean, Donald Trump gave us everything he wanted to come to power to do. Everything, he said it. And when he came, he tried to do every one of them. And yet, by doing what he said he would do, he rather became an enemy of the state.
Yes.
And you see, that's somebody who doesn't really mind the emotions. Let's get the work done. And for that is one of the biggest faults of the choleric. And the biggest fault because all we are talking about is humans. And so when you try to sort of take away the emotion element, then that's sort of, you are tumbling down the whole what you have built. And yet these are the very people we also need in society to move, you know, us beyond what we are able to do. So if you if you have friends who can even get angry at you, like you realize that, but we were just, this is just something. So why are you so angry about this? Just because I came here 2 minutes late. Why are you talking about? Oh, spending all the time.
Things personal, sort of.
Too serious. Those guys are serious about life. Cholerics are damn serious, and most of the time, they will begin with a vision. They can tell you when you are young that I'm going to grow up to become this, and you can be certain that they will become that.
So determined.
So determined. I mean, some of us, once upon a time, we wanted to be footballers. Then you change to doctors. Then you change to this.
Like me,
footballer. You know, but the choleric can be certain. They are. In fact, I was reading a paper. I don't know how true, but they say some cholerics at age 11 stop crying. By age 11, they don't know how to cry. So when you are expressing emotion, they don't understand. They expect you to be as firm and as strong as they are. And so why you are late? That is why I'm telling you to leave. Don't come to me. Don't cry. No, I know your mother is sick, but I don't care.
Okay.
Let's get done.
It doesn't care about your emotions, your sentiment.
Not at all.
In fact, I started working with
Wow.
with one of them. It was a Greek, you know, and
okay.
I remember when I started working, I used to fall sick frequently. I think it was under fever or malaria. A little thing, I go to the hospital, they'll give me 2 or 3 days off. And sometimes when I come to work and I take the medication, some of them makes me drowsy. So I end up sleeping in the office. And then one day, it made it very clear to me that if I cannot work, I should let him do it. I don't know, for some reason, the sickness, I became healed, you know, I didn't fall. No,
Hey, I'm ready to lose your job.
no, I was hoping it would show some
Yes,
impact.
yes,
I'm not feeling too well, you know, but I became healed, you know, instantly. You know, so there are people like that, you know. They
So you
talk
need them around you.
Yeah. And in fact, one of them actually, and they were Greeks,
Okay.
and one of them told me that if I can work with him, then I can work with anybody. You know, and then because the pressure they give, you know, the effort, you know.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, they were being molesting me or punishing me,
Yeah,
but they were telling me, look, it's a way to kind of build you up, you know. So if you, that's what I say, look at the military, you know, system of it.
Everybody needs a
You know,
choleric.
Everybody needs a
it's
At least
important.
At some point
Yes.
in your life,
It's
you
important.
need somebody who move. I mean, at some point, it was believed that the human being cannot run beyond certain, you know,
Yeah.
time
Yes,
limit, and
yes.
yet somebody broke
Break
that.
that,
So
yeah.
it's like the choleric will drive you
Yeah.
out of your
limits.
comfort zone. They are the people who do that.
They challenge you, stretch
You have no idea. I mean, the sanguine is like a cheerleader.
Yeah.
They are always just cheering you on. But the choleric is a damn coach who will not take your mistakes.
That's true.
And so will push you every limit. And sometimes we need help from ourselves.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, you are one of your enemies.
Yeah.
We have enemies, but we are one of our enemies. And so you need somebody who can sort of move you beyond a certain limit. And you need a choleric to be able to go that whole.
Everybody needs a choleric to be able to achieve your dreams and aspirations. If you don't have a choleric around you, go get a choleric. It's very important. Anyway, you can call 0246 239070. You can keep sending your messages. There's a message here. There's no name. It says, okay, there's a name. It said, hello, this is Priscilla from Tema. Today is my first time watching your show. I'm really touched by what you guys are saying. I pray for our beloved country. God bless you for this and lovely show. God bless you, Priscilla. And she continues to say, said also about the temperament, peer pressure, also what we go through in life can lead us to why we do what we do. It's true.
I agree.
Sometimes the challenges that we go through, it molds us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, I
take on
mean,
that.
there are different experiences, and even talking about the differences in human beings as we have talking about these days. I mean, there are other people who are sort of expanding the temperament into other. So some say they are 6, some say they are 7, 8. And generally, even if you look at women as against men in terms of differences, there are traits that
Absolutely.
I mean, it's said that if you take 3 people, or if you have 10 people and you want to bet how many of them may be highly emotional, most likely it will be a woman. And yet when you're looking for people who are generally aggressive, there's a reason why a lot of men are in prison. It's not like, there's a reason why men end up in prison more than women. And it's been pointed to the fact that men are very aggressive by nature than women. I know these days we are even trying to flatten the curve of having women in STEM. And so we are talking about how we can move them to begin doing engineering and everything. But in the Scandinavian countries where now they've been able to almost flatten the curve, still men are moving away from nursing into engineering, and women are still moving away from engineering into nursing. So it's like, yeah, there are a lot of things that come into play generally about, you know, the different sexes, also on the level of these four temperaments. And yes, the social space where you are born can be the reason why, and who you are born to can be the reason why it's exactly.
Wow. So let's go to the next tendency, that is listen to. Before let me announce the lines. The lines are on your screen, so you can pick them 024 6223 9070 024 623 9070. Let's look at the phlegmatic. Their traits. Ezekiel, I'll start from you from there. What are some of their way of doing things and the way they behave in society, family-wise?
Well, for the phlegmatic, we've seen sanguine, we've seen the choleric. So phlegmatic also has its own exhibits. They are usually calm, diplomatic, you know, consistent, you know. So it's like the opposites of the other ones we discussed so far, sanguine and choleric, you know. So I mean, so the other cool type, oh, Charlie, no, Charlie, slow but sure, you know, that kind of stuff. So yeah, so that's basically those within the phlegmatic category.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you'd realize it's like the kind of friend you have who can never make up their mind. Sometimes you don't understand about this. We are just talking about food. Why are you spending so much time to this to tell us what you will eat? Yeah. Charlie, let's just, and he will just ultimately will say, okay, you choose what you eat, and I'll just eat the same thing. That's a phlegmatic.
Okay.
So very calm, collected, indecisive.
Indecisive, yes.
Not able to make decisions by themselves. So most of the time, they will go with the flow.
Okay, they go with the flow, yeah.
Very diplomatic, and so very useful in the space of counseling. Very good listeners because they themselves they have few words, so they listen a lot. Yeah, and so it's like when you are with such a person, most of the time when you need a decision made, you have better made that decision. You can wait on them for a very long time. And yet, when the good thing about them is that they are not internally driven. Yeah. The way we see the choleric move, the way we see the sanguine come in and it's alive. The phlegmatic needs to be drawn in. The kind of person who needs to be drawn in. Drawn in because of the way they are diplomatic, they hardly want to step on a toe. Yeah. So they would rather stay in a zone where they don't have to hurt anyone.
They're scared to hurt people.
Exactly.
Sort of.
And so it makes it difficult. Play it safe. Making it very difficult to engage. So they need a lot of encouragement to draw them in. And when you draw them in and they are in their space, a place where you don't need to make fast decisions, a place where you need somebody who can be meticulous, they really thrive. Yeah.
That's where they are weaknesses.
Yeah, so
most of the things you said is more or less their weaknesses.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, you see, indecisive, but you realize that, you see, such people, especially in a place where decisions need to be taken slower and needs to be taken by people who actually look at the figures. Okay. And see what really matters and what doesn't. And check against what needs to be done and why some things must still wait for 2 weeks. You need a phlegmatic. The choleric would do what the phlegmatic would do in 2 weeks, in 2 days.
2 days.
And may bulldoze their way through and we may not even care about the consequence. But if it has to take 2 weeks, the phlegmatic will prove to you why it has to still take 2 weeks. So at least on that front, it helps in such an environment. They become very, very helpful.
Okay, somebody else, they said, I am Richmond Akon. Please ask Pastor, how can someone be his or her own enemy? He said, how can someone be his or her own enemy?
You see, when you know, it's like a baby. A 1-year-old is not a friend to themselves. And if you want to know, leave that 1-year-old for just 10 minutes. And you will come back and know that this baby is an enemy to itself. They will go and pick a soap and eat. If you are not careful and there's electricity, they will touch it.
Oh, my brother.
If the door is
My
open,
brother.
Charlie, they will go their own way.
With the food on fire. You know, all
Exactly.
that, they just-
They are enemies to themselves. And most of the time, I like to picture the adult as just a big baby. Because sometimes we assume we know who we are.
But we don't know.
And yet, we are almost always surprised at the people we become. We are all surprised at who we ultimately end up becoming. And that is proof we don't really know who we are. It's like you grow up and all of a sudden a lot of things change. This is me sitting here talking as if this is how I've been talking since I was small. And yet there were times so shy, very quiet. So it's like, then I don't really know who I am. And if I don't know who I am, let me not assume that, that's an enemy to herself because that's a baby. It is possible for adults to be enemies to themselves. That is why this, what we are talking about, is important, because at least people will now begin to know who they actually are, which then begins to make you really a friend and not an enemy to yourself.
Well, for me, I like the link between the, previous week we've been talking about emotional intelligence, and people sent message, so I like the collaboration with that in terms of the temperament, getting to know your emotional way of reacting towards it, and how you yourself getting to know yourself as well. So when you blend these two, you'll be able to maneuver your way through life very well. And I think it's very important for us to know all this, because until you know these things, a certain path you cannot, and a certain path you may be able to go on that path. So I think it's very important for our viewers to also get to know all these things. He has alluded a lot to the weaknesses. Maybe I don't know whether you also have something to say about that.
I think that he has virtually said that. So one even to the one of the weaknesses that the traits could be lead to laziness, because they don't want, and also they are afraid, to take risk, So these are some of, if you like, some of the negatives or challenges or weaknesses, of is it phlegmatic?
Yeah, phlegmatic. I have a message here. It says that I'm Gloria, watching you from Kivas. For the past few months, I've been following your show. There's never been any Saturday I don't watch. Each and every Saturday gives me a more leap to go further in life. Please, I'll be one of the most hurt people if whatever is being discussed on your show is not being documented for people to purchase. The first person who would like to purchase, I'll be the one.
Wow.
So, King George, document your show. A very detailed and a very insightful guest that you bring on the show. Thank you, Gloria.
Very, very.
I'm ready to say. We need sponsors, Gloria. Without money, you cannot be on air. So if you know somebody who also knows somebody who can be of help by sponsoring the show, praise God. You're almost welcome. There's a friend watching from US. It's called Jeremy. He said, George, I'm really watching the show. Your guests are good and solid. Keep it up. And this is this Kennedy from different branch of ICGs. He said, I'm watching this show. I'm really enjoying your guests. They know what they're talking about. And this Isaac. Okay, this Isaac was saying, wonderful show. Keep it up. And okay, I'm enjoying the show. That's Thomas. Thomas says he's enjoying the show. Thomas. one of our guests.
Ah.
Thomas was on the show last with
Okay.
he said I'm really enjoying myself. Thomas, hope to see you very soon.
Very nice.
So I think time is fast spent, but your last comment,
Okay, so
last words.
yeah,
We couldn't touch on the third one, which
yeah,
is the
the fourth one, the melancholy.
okay, but so let's wrap it up. So let's summarize so that we can
Okay,
next
so
time we can have another different topic to discuss.
okay, so on the melancholy,
Yeah.
I think the melancholy is almost the opposite of the sanguine, just as much as the phlegmatic is almost the negative of the opposite of the choleric, because the melancholic, the sanguine enters the place and everybody knows them. The melancholic, nobody knows them, and they like it that way.
Okay.
They try to keep their space very small. The kind of people you wonder about, why we are all in this room talking to people, why are you not talking to anybody? No, you better go and
Reserved,
talk to
sort
the
of.
melancholic. They don't open up.
Okay.
Very deep emotionally, the kind of people you can see their emotions every day. If you go to any funeral, those who are really crying, they are melancholy. In this world,
Wow.
anybody who carries their heads for so long must be a melancholy. Wow. Yeah. The melancholic finds it very
Teaching has
difficult.
something to do. I hope our viewers are learning. In fact, some of the things you are saying, I don't know them anyway.
Yeah, very. If you're not careful, you may do them something, they may never forgive you. And that is because, like, they.
So we need to identify all these people around us.
Exactly. It's like you are looking in the lenses of how the people respond so that you can really work well with them.
Wow.
It's not easy, but it is helpful to be aware and
Yeah.
intentional about these things. Yeah.
See, your take.
Okay, so well, in the interest of time, I would say that I also read somewhere that they are very, when it comes to issue, very what do you call it, when poetry, arts, you find them.
Yeah, yeah.
dedicating
I've also
towards
read that
area.
area. Yeah.
In terms of, so because of the way they hold on to issues, their emotions, they're also prone to depression. And so sometimes when people are getting depressed, they must also check, it can give you a fair idea as to what their trait is. So, so because of time, I think these are the few things I want to add on.
So before I come to Prince to give us his closing remarks, you give us your closing remarks.
Well, I think that it is important for everybody to know him or herself. Of course, today we discuss the traits. We are saying that just to create an awareness, and none of them is perfect. They have the strength and the weakness. But I think that it's once you have the fair idea of who you are, and you want to better. In fact, if you know who you are a better place to make amends where you think there are shortfalls. Like we said initially, even if you're getting married, you want to marry somebody who will even complement your weakness. So at least having that awareness again is for me is quite critical. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Yeah. One lesson that I picked up in 2021. Well, in 2020, coming into 2021, is the reason, is the fact that you see most research points to the need and the power of the brain. And so the human being sort of wants to say the brain is the most powerful thing. True. But in the space of knowing yourself, you have to assume not to fully trust in how the brain interprets the things you see. It's a place to begin from. So I tell people, trust your brain less.
Okay.
So that you can now be open to the real things happening around you. Like you may not even be aware that the results you are getting around you is because you are not, paying attention to the differences in people. But your brain can tell you that, oh, nobody likes me. And that is why the melancholic, most of the time will end up in depression because they keep all their emotions from everybody and most of the time invest it in a few. And in that few, because a human being is a human being, the expectations they want from those few most of the time is unrealistic.
Wow.
Yeah. And for a culture that, for example, in marriage, when somebody tries to raise their baby thinking the Cinderella kind of marriage, and maybe the child really wants to then marry perfect prince, and finally ends up in a place where there's no human being as perfect like that. You can be certain
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
person is going to go into depression.
Wow.
And so let us trust our brain less, really. I mean, all learning will happen at the speed of us trusting our brain less so that we can now begin to absorb
Absorb
what is
more.
coming. So that would be my final words.
Wow. Wow. What can I say? But before I sign off, for the sake of our viewers, somebody suggested that you want us to discuss governance and leadership. So I want to ask my guests, if I'm calling next week, will you make it? Can you make it for us next week?
Oh, of course. I mean,
that should be fine.
yeah.
Okay, so next week we are discussing governance and leadership. I want to thank my guests for such a wonderful time, availing themselves to educate us, giving us certain ideas how to live with people in the society so that we will not offend people. In fact, like they said, you must have a friend who is choleric. In fact, I took that one very serious. We must know the kind of people around us, whether they are sanguine, whether they are phlegmatic, whether they are melancholy. We need to know all these people very well so that we can be able to live with them harmony, informed to be transformed, and to be uninformed to be deformed. God bless you.